Why can't I hear you? I can't hear you. Kayvon?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Demai, Perek Aleph, Halacha Aleph, and Halacha Beis. We're going to begin. We're going to learn today Daf Dalet. We left off on Daf Gimel Amid Beis, 2 lines before the bottom of the Amid, V'Hagufnin. Right. So we're going to basically go through various other items that we began this Masechta with Hakalin Shabbat, right? Items that were mentioned in Halacha Aleph. And as we said in the intro to last year, we just never finished it, that the point the Gemara is going to make is that the items that we mentioned are really dependent on the time and its locality, because certain items were only at a certain time considered insignificant. Rabbi Yechanan, Roif people were mafkedit. Eish Lakish, because it was so insignificant, people, even people that were not that machmir, which we all should be, they were they were not lax, because anyways it was not that significant. Might as well give all of the tithings. So we're going to go through a couple of details. We're going to see about the nest that happened, this man habayis. And don't forget that the Mishnah is Bizman Bayis Sheni, which is amazing. Generally, Bizman Bayis Sheni, there were a lot less miracles. That wines that were made in Judea, in Yehuda, did not turn vinegar. And therefore, they would make their vinegar from temed. So we're going to have a little bit about temed. And most importantly, something that's much broader than the sugyas of the Mai is that just like we have in Babli, Baba Basra, Daf Chav Gimel Amid Beis, Amar Rab Chanina, Roiv v'Karoiv, Hoilchan Achar HaRoiv. And we're going to speak about that. We're going to have mamish, that sugya, when you have Roiv, when you have Karoiv, which one will trump? The Gemara here doesn't use these words, but that will be the topic of the end of the sugya of Halacha Aleph. And we're going to start today also learning Halacha Beis. And Halacha Beis is going to be more leniencies that extend the Demai, but it's all going to be about Ma'aser Sheni. So really what the Mishnah is going to point out is that we're going to go through many details in the halacha of Ma'aser Sheni, and we're going to see that certain restrictions, certain boundaries don't exist when it comes to the Mai. Just as an example, when we are Machalal Ma'aser Sheni, right, you transfer the Kedusha of the product, of the Peidas, into money. Now, the rule is that when you make such a chilul, such a transference, it has to be from one type to a different type. But you can't do it from the same type. Like, for example, you're not machalal if you have money that you use to exchange the kedusha of the produce. You can't exchange the kedusha of these silver coins on other silver coins because it's the same. Just as an example, by Demai you are allowed to do it. Another example, that Ma'aser Sheni may not be exchanged for produce outside Yerushalmi. The whole point is you take the money, and when you come to Yerushalmi, in Yerushalmi, you use the money to buy fruit, to buy oichel or mashkin. Outside Yerushalmi, you may not exchange the money for produce. We're going to see that by Demai, you are allowed to do it. There's another detail. We're going to get into many details. If you remember in Perek Hazov and Baba Metzia, in the Babli, like when you have different types of coins, silver and copper, when people will exchange one coin for the other, halachically, we don't view both as money. We view the silver to be the money and the nechoshes coins, the copper coins, to be relative to the silver coins, peidas. And we're going to see again how this plays out over here. But again, this general rule that you cannot exchange Ma'aser Sheni for produce, for peidas, chutz, liYerushalayim. Okay, we're going to learn Daf Dalet, and we're going to start again on Daf Gimel Amid Beis. We left off 2 lines before the bottom of the Amid. The Mishnah spoke about Noivelis Hatamara. We just finished learning about the Noivelis Hatamara, and in the Mishnah, Daf Aleph, the next one was Gufnin, and Gufnin we typed in English fennel, and fennel, so before Kevan, the Gemara says that's called Shum Mira, and if you have a zoom at that picture, you'll see what the picture is. That's what fennel is. Now, the question the Gemara asks now is the Mishnah saying that this Shumira is considered very insignificant in the Galil, or is it Bein Yehuda or Bein Galil? Is it in both locations? Because if you remember in Daf Aleph, the Mishnah went through 8 items. By quickly going through, what are the 8 items? Shisen, Rimin, Uzradin, B'nai Shuach, B'nai Shikma, Noivus Atamara, Guflan, and Nitzpah. That's in the Galil. And then the Mishnah said, and Ubi Yehuda, the other 3, Oig, Chaimitz, and Kuzbar. So what the Gemara is basically asking are the first 8, which include Gufnin, is that only insignificant in the Galil or even in Yehuda? So the Gemara says, I'll tell you, I'll know from the way people speak. From the fact that only in the Galil people would have the following expression and turn to Davdala to hear the expression that Shumira, Shamar Mara, Shumira, which is bitter like a mara, like the gallbladder. So they used to use a play of words. Is man masala im tavlai? Who even associated it with spices? It's so not chashuv. Like, why are people calling it a spice? It's bitter. Now, that was a derogatory expression that people said in the Galil. And true, we're learning just the way people speak. But from the way people speak, you can see one's attitude. It's about the attitude for that item. Is Hadar Amra from them Zetmin, that only, and since they only use that expression B'Galil, that only by Galil is it exempt. Bein Rabbi Yechanan l'shitasei or Reish Lakish l'shitasei. But Rabbi Yehuda chayiv. Okay, and now, like we just spoke out, that in Yehuda the Mishnah went on to say there are 3 items in which we are lenient, and those are oig, and chaimetz, and kuzbar. The Gemara first is going to speak about kuzbara. So interesting, and then the Gemara is going to speak about the chaimetz. Why the Gemara goes out of order? Maybe the Gemara had a different say than in the Mishnah, or maybe there's another reason. Okay, kuzbara, what is kuzbara? Says kuzbarta. That answers. That's called coriander. And again, if you have a Zoom, you can take a look and you can see befedish was is das coriander. Now here again, is it baby Yehuda baby Galil in the opposite direction? In Yehuda, clearly it was something considered insignificant. Was it the same in Galil? So same thing. Since they used to use the following mashal, they had the following expression: bidreme, guys, droima of Eretz Yisrael is Yehuda. That's the way it's called. I know that today, when people speak about the south of Israel, they speak about the Negev. No, by us it's Yehuda, which is the south. The Tzafon is Galil, and then Eber Layadin. These are the way we divide up the Holy Land. So what's the expression that we only had in Yehuda? That kuzbarta, coriander, man moselech im tavlayu. Who associated you with spices? In other words, you're so inferior. Why are we even calling you a spice? And that was something that was only said in Yehuda. Same thing we had before, right? By the Shumira. Here it's by the Kuzbarta. Hada Amra only by Galil Chayevas, but in Yehuda Ptura. Okay, so far simple. Now, the Mishnah said that in Yehuda, like we mentioned, Oig, Chaimetz, and Kuzbar, and we're going to learn about the Chaimetz. Chaimetz is normally, in the times of Chazal, it was wine that turned into vinegar. Wine is something very chashuv. And when chaimetz is made out of wine, there are no leniencies at all when it comes to the chaimetz, when again the dinim in the Mishnah, that you can presume when you buy it from an Amoritz, either that it was hefken or that he zikr took off all the trumas omaisis. Why in Yehuda could we treat chaimetz leniently? And this is the thing we're going to learn right now. We spoke it out in the Mishnah, is because during the times of the Beis HaMikdash, there was a special bracha that Hashem gave to the wine of Yehuda only, not on the Galil, that it didn't turn sour. Because since those wines were made in the state of Tahara, everyone who made wine were hoping that the Beis HaMikdash would buy their wine. So it's not that they knew, it's not that it was all made for the Beis HaMikdash. But we made it with the kavanah that it's going to be Batara. If the Holy Temple will need it, I'll have it ready. And because of that, it had a bracha. And therefore, when they needed vinegar, they used temet. Temet is a drink that we learn a lot about in Bavli and Brachas. It also comes from the grapes. What they did was as after they made the wine, at some point, the grape seeds and the peels were already oisgenutz. They were used out, but they still had some coloring in it. So they would soak water in it, and it's not a weak wine. It's called temet. It was like a punch. So the color of the grape seeds, the right kite, went into the water. Huh? Like Moscato wine. Very good. Or like even I would say like Rashi wine. After you have the fancy dry wines over here, and everyone has their madreg. It's a step down. That was something to begin with. Temed is very insignificant. And therefore, the same logic. Either, therefore, most people didn't care, like it had a status of hefker. Rabbi Yechanan, Rish Lakish, the Amaretz would give all the trumas of Meiser. So Loinzech is not doing it in something so insignificant. Okay, it says the Brayso. Tani Vilon, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, that you should know that Barishaina, that originally this means Bisman Habayis. All of the chaymitz was exempt. Gavaldik chaymitz means but vinegar from temet. In other words, since there was a Beis Hamikdash, since all the people in Yehuda, they would make wine for the Nesachim, and therefore Hashem made a nes, and therefore in other words, if you there wasn't enough sour wine to make vinegar. So the vinegar business was made out of temet. And let's learn Pshat Nachamo, that temet is considered something so insignificant. See, it's a little bit difficult to understand Rabbi Yechanan by temet. See, Mela, when it comes to a fruit that grows naturally on the tree, and Rabbi Yechanan is saying that people were mafked it, I understand that. If something grows in abundance, and it's anyways a garnish vert. Here a guy made it. Here you made it. Nevertheless, since the vinegar was made from temet, and temet itself is hefker. No, it's the temet. It's in other words, the effort that I made with the vinegar. That's something else. But since the raw material, the materia prima, was temet, and temet was generally then hefker, just because you reacquired it to make vinegar, because temet also had a little bit of alcohol and it did turn, and they made it into vinegar. That was already chashuv. But they used the temet. Temet was lachatchila something that was exempted from tithings because of the din that hefker is patur min hamaisos. But however, says Rabbi Yehuda, that all of that is only because the vinegar was made from temet, because there was a nes in the wine. But va'achshav, says the Tana Rabbi Yehuda, after the Churban Abayis, shahayayin machmitz, everything changed. Chayiv. And by the way, that's for the whole Mishnah. So the Mishnah gave 8 items in the Golub. The Mishnah gave 3 items in the Yehuda. It's not, trade is eternal, of course. The din is eternal. The application will change. That item in the Mishnah at that time and in that place was considered insignificant. But that's what the Brayso is saying. If the item becomes significant, vinegar is now being made from soured wine. Wine is expensive. Wine is chayiv to be tithe. Vinegar from wine has to be tithe. Then the holding of the Mishnah changes. Says the Gemara, asks the Gemara, I have a problem.
Rabbi.
Yeah.
1 second. The entire ether of temet of the glass always in the Yain of Betare at the beginning. But the Amoret, the Gizma is actually the topic of the Amoret. But this side, can he do Yain Betare? Not completely predicting.
The way I understand Yain Betara is not shleimah that we trust that the Amoretz is knowledgeable enough to make the wine halachically Betara. I'll give you a mashal. You know how many people over here, they have a kosher home when they don't have a kosher home. I'm talking about a kosher kitchen. In other words, many people don't have a kosher kitchen because they're amaratzim. They just don't know the ninim. But their attitude is, I have a kosher kitchen. They only buy the kosher food. And memela, a person, even the amaratzim, since the kavana was, if the Beis Hamikdash needs wine, I'm going to do it the way I know betana. God gave a bracha into the wine. Even though you're right, technically, a chaver was not allowed to buy wine from the Amoretz. It wasn't because, it was because b'shogeg. I think it's a good mashal. Many people's kitchens, you don't eat there, and they're telling you, I have a kosher kitchen. You believe them when they say that their intent is to have a kosher kitchen. The problem is that they don't know enough. If there was a mixture of meat and milk, they don't know the dinner. And I think the kavana was enough for them to be a keli for the miracle. That's the one I think. It doesn't have to be tara. Okay, back over here. Frag the Gemara, hold on. Rabbi Yehuda is the one that says that. Mechal foshitosi Rabbi Yehuda have a stira. What's the contradiction? The Tanid on Taman. We are quoting now a Mishnah Chebre in Misachtes Maisres. Ha Misameid. We're speaking about Temed, right? And one thing is very important. if the person that is making temet, though he was using grape seeds and grape peels that were already mu'usar, there's nothing what to talk about. Hakol short of a kind. Speaking about someone that didn't tithe as they should have, they made the wine, so the wine is on tithe. But now they're making temet. Now the issue is that even though the temet is on tithe, and now we just learned over here that if temet is, if the whole thing is hefker, there's no issue. But this Mishnah obvious holds there is an issue. Elama, there's another question. When you put water in it, you put water in this grape seeds. So we learned this Mishnah in Babli a few times. Let's say you put a gallon of water in, and it goes over the grape seeds, and then what comes out, let's say, is a gallon. So one Tana holds that is a raya that all the grape seeds and the peels added was only a color. It didn't add content, substance, vaharaya, gallon. So it's not a problem. Let's read it inside. Even though that which gave color was on tithe, it's b'chlal not a problem because it didn't add anything to it. It doesn't matter. So no, we're saying over here that it's only if it would add it from itself. If you gave a measure, you know how much measure. Let's say you gave a liter. And how much did you have at the end? A liter. So say the chachamim, you're potter. You're making a good point. There's a flavor. I don't care. Color and flavor. I only care if it gave from itself. However, Rabbi Yehuda is mechayev. Now, by the way, why is Rabbi Yehuda mechayev? I'll just say Rabbi Yehuda is mechayev because not because he disagrees with this opinion. Rabbi Yehuda also agrees that if all the grape seeds gave was only the color and the flavor of Vlad, segurnish halachically for mices. But you know what I say? Let's say it's a liter. I put a liter in the grape seeds. Some of the water stayed in the grape seeds, and the epis from the grape itself went out. So you don't know to say that none of it. There is also from itself. So Bekitzer, what do we see from over here in that Mishnah? We see the Fedish that temet has to be a tithe. Our Mishnah, it goes against. No, it's by the way, the Mishnah didn't say Rabbi Yehuda by temet, but now that we had a Braisa, the Braisa, Rabbi Yehuda. He's being masmid that was man habayis. Temet is always exempt min hamaisis because temet, vinegar is exempt because it comes from temet. So you see that Rabbi Yehuda holds that temet is hefker.
Rabbi,
so how can Rabbi Yehuda say in maisis that we got a problem? No. I know he's emphasizing that even though it came b'midah, you don't know. It's not water. Some of the water stayed in the grape seeds, and some of the grape seeds went into that. So what? Temet, the whole din over here is the price. Rabbi Yehuda agrees with the Tan of our Mishnah. So that's another kasha that Vlad is asking about batal l'shishim, and we learned this. And we don't say batal l'shishim because it's like a davar hamaymed. In other words, the whole point of the temet is that you want that in the water. You're being machshav it. You want the color, you want the flavor. Okay, Omar Rabbi Law, we have this already, guys. Rabbi Law is Rabbi Ilam in the Bavli. No, I'll tell you the answer. When the Beis Hamikdash stood, there was a side of what we spoke about, vinegar, or something else. There were so many grapes. So indeed, we're good that when you have the wine, aside of the fact that the wine stayed fresh, benes, side of that, there was so much kamus that once you made the wine and now you have the grape seeds and this and that, it was not chashuv anymore. However, now means after the Chorban Habayis that there was a diminution of the bracha in Peiros Haaretz and including she'ein anavim merubais, and therefore after the Zman Habayis chatzanim chashuvais. So it's amazing. Comes out, guys, that the Braisa that we learned before, Rabbi Yehuda, was Zman Habayis. The Mishnah that we just learned in Maisres, the Mishnah was at that time. Rabbi Yehuda lived after the Churban. Rabbi Yehuda was one of the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was there when they stood by the Churban Habayis. No, this is after the temple was destroyed by 100 years. Be'erech. So currently, the grape seeds were more chashuv. Temet is not hefker. Not a steam.
All right, what bracha did they make on temet? Shakol or hagefen?
So that's what we learned in brachas, and I push it. I don't remember Kavan. I don't remember.
I
remember learning about that also. Google it to see. It's in Masechta Brachas of someone here. My son Mendel is very good in Brachas to remember.
Doesn't that make it significant or insignificant?
I think it's shahakol. I think that's the whole topic of temet, and the whole kasha is how to define temet. When does it go from agafen to shat? I think. Okay, says the Gemara that Rav Huna Omar that Rabbi Yirmiyah asked the following question. That leist hada pliga al Rab Shimon ben Lakish. Let's go back to the brayso that we learned. The whole concept that we learned from the brayso, from the Tana Rabbi Yehuda, how originally they would make yain betara, and therefore they would bring temet. Rabbi Yehuda seems to be saying, so what that they brought temet? That temet is hefket. That's the pshat in the brayso. Guys, this whole mahalach in our Mishnah is only Rabbi Yechanan's mahalach. That the items that are mentioned in the Mishnah, since they are so inexpensive, the owners, berubam, they abandon it. And that's why we are kalin b'demai. Reish Lakish did not have that shita. Reish Lakish held that the owners don't abandon it. There's another din. Since they have so little value, the owners will for sure take up all the trumas umaisis. But it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit with Rebbe and Hanami. The Gemara doesn't give an answer. Yes, the Braisas, the way we are learning the Braisa, Rabbi Yechanan is going like Rabbi Yehuda's understanding in this whole topic. It's about the owners being mafkir. Next, says the Mishnah. Now, I just want to read the words. The Mishnah writes at the end that kol, this is in our Mishnah, on Daf Aleph, Rabbi Yehuda says in our Mishnah, kol horimin pturim. Rimin is thorn jujubs. Shkoich, it sounds Persian to me. They are potted. Chutz, it's chutz mirimei shikmainim. That these rimins that come from a place of shikmaina, they are chashuv. So asks the Gemara that this is a very important topic. Frag the Gemara, how does that even work? You have rimin. Let's just call it rimin. So you're telling me that the rimei shikmaina are chashuv. So what? When you buy rimin, roiv rimin are not from shikma. So what will be the application that rimei shikmaina are considered chashuv? They don't have the leniencies of the mai. Whenever you buy a rimain, you're going to go after the roiv. Now that's certainly the case if you were to buy it outside of shikmaina. That's the first. If you buy it outside shikmaina, so that's the first kasha. So in fact, the Gemara v'yibru kol ribim al rimei shikma, and b'meila, it's going to be exempt. Who cares if there's one type that's chashuv? So for that, Amar Rabbi Yosi, you're right that when you buy this rimen outside shikma and a chanami, it's going to be lenient because you follow right. Where do we apply the din of our Mishnah's Rabbi Yehuda? Where tiftoid b'makim sheroiv mishamrim. In other words, we are roiv mishamrim in the city shikma, in shikmaina. If you buy rimen in shikmaina, then you go after the roiv of shikmaina. Now, I want you to know, let me just say how this is worded, like we mentioned in the introduction, in Bava Basra, Daf Chav Gimel Amud Beis. That's a very big concept. We just said that roiv, rimen are, let's go with Rabbi Yechanan, guys, are hefker. They even vada is pater min hamaisos. When you buy this rimen, so we're saying that if you buy it outside shikmaina, you follow roiv. If you buy it in shikmaina, locally here, it's more chashuv. 1 second. Who says that the ones that you bought over here did not come from outside? That sugya is called in Bava Basra roiv karoiv. Because if you look at roiv are a column. If you look at, do you say that it came from the closest? If you look at karoiv, in this case, the karoivs are more chashuv, you'll be chayv. And Taka the Gemara says in Bava Basra, roiv and karoiv, which one will trump if you have to pick and choose? A roiv. So hold on a second. So now I have a kasha. If roiv and karoiv, I'm sorry. Yeah. Gemara says you go after roiv. If roiv and karoiv, you go after roiv. So I'm stuck now with my kasha. What's my kasha? Even if you buy it in shikma, it's not a problem. Who cares? Why? Because roiv should trump. So Rabbi Yosi berabun boy. That's the basis on the kasha. Ve'ein kol ha'olam kulay lefanav. There is a whole world. In the whole world, we say that these women were insignificant. Let's go with Rabbi Yechanan. Hefker. So ve'yirbu kol harimim sheba'olam al rimei oisamakim, and ve'yu peturim. Now, before I want to suggest something, I want to say like this: that why taka do we say by Roiv and Karoiv? Karoiv is also a logic. Remember, we learned in Shkala and right in the Beis Hamikdash, there were like these 13 shofros, and what happens if you find a coin outside one of the pushkas? So the rule is it belongs to the one that's Karoiv. Karoiv is a, and then there's a concept called Roiv. You don't know where it came from. It came from out there. We'll go after the Roiv. Roiv and Karoiv. The reason why we pass in I'm just using words of Rabbi Chanan Wasserman. He says, he says, when you have a halachic questions and you have these rules, some of them work. Let me use his words because it's mevader. Roiv is a logic. There is a logic to it. I don't know, but there is a logic to go after the majority. He argues, Rabbi Chanan, that Karoiv isn't that logical. Who says it came from Karev? He says he calls it a hachra. It's like the Torah says, and there's sources for all of this. They have a doubt, and there is something called close and near. You go after which is close. He calls that a hachra. He argues that it's not such a birur, it's not such a logical argument, and therefore Roiv and Karev, the logic has to prevail. Roiv is greater than Karev. A birur is greater than a hachra. I'm saying this is his word. Without you can push back on this. Let's leave it as it is. But now we have a kash, and the Gemara doesn't answer the kash. Now the Maharan Chaviv, by the way, whoever has an art scroll, it's printed at the back. He says that the Gemara didn't need to give an answer. The Gemara is making a point that you don't have to word the whole thing. And what is that? And I identify with that. When you live in America, if it's still a free economy, wherever you live and where there's a free economy, which means that you can import. Then the Gemara's kasha is a kasha. Who cares that if that which grows locally has one halachic status? Who says it's from the local? We go after Roiv ha'olam. But there are many societies that they did not allow importation. You can't import, or there's a lot of restrictions for you to import, and people do it sometimes to boost the local economy. If you live in such a scenario, I mean, that will be the simple answer. That's not a kasha that needs to be answered. It's more like the way he explains. Whenever you have Roiv and Karoiv, Roiv, that's if the Roiv will also make its way in here. But if in this locality, people don't allow for things from other countries to be imported, to be sold. It has to be local, has to be made in America, has to be made in Lahavdil and Eretz Yisrael. If you have that, Eretz Yisrael is very careful with importations. You buy your car, you pay 100% tax, right? And once you live in a society where bringing stuff in is very expensive, then you're not competing with Roiv. That will be the case of the Mishnah. It's like almost obvious that the application of Rabbi Yehuda is b'makom that they don't allow that which grows outside the common over here. And why would they? Think about it. You have people that are selling Riemann outside a hefker. Guys here, that's their livelihood. What are you going to do? If you're going to allow Riemann to be brought in, you'll finish them. So what's the solution? You can't bring it in. Tariffs, yeah. And there comes a point with the tariffs that it's not worth it, or you give the locals a fighting chance, they say in America. Then you can't say Roiv. Then it changes. Okay. Guys, the new Mishnah, Halacha Beis, is really going to be indirectly teaching us all of the details about Meiser Sheni. So as we said, in all of the produce that's chayiv to be tithed after Truma Gedolah and after Meiser Rishon, only on that which remains on the first and second year of the 7-year cycle, on the fourth and fifth year of the 7-year cycle, it means 4 out of the 7. Shemitah is garnished, that's out. The third and the sixth, Meiser Ani. But on the other direction, 1, 2, 4, 5, you give Meiser Sheni. Meiser Sheni means that the produce itself has to be brought and eaten in Yerushalmi. However, the Torah says that right? If you're far and therefore you decided that you cannot take it to Yerushalayim, or any way you want to word it, a person lives near, but they're not going now to Yerushalayim, and the produce is perishable. So the Torah tells you that there is the option for the owner to redeem it on money. How much money? Its value, plus if the owner is the one doing the chilul from the peiros on ma'os, he has to add a halachic fifth. Then the money my money is perishable. I don't know how, but other people's monies, they last somehow. So the money you leave, and you take that money to Yerushalayim, and you use the money for produce. Now, all of the items that are demai, not the ones, only the ones that we began our Masechta with. Any item that you're buying from the Amaretz, wheat, you're buying grapes, and the Amaretz is telling you, I tithe it. It's always that way. If the Amaretz says, I didn't tithe it, then it's not demai, then it's tevel. You believe him when he says, I didn't do it. He's saying, I did it. And we're saying, he did some of it. He's a little bit ignorant, like my mashal with my kitchen is kosher. He taka means it, but it's not kosher enough. And you have to separate the little things that we mentioned before. You don't have to separate the Truma Gedoyla. You only have to separate Meiser Rishon to take from it Meiser Min HaMeiser and give it to the Kohen. You have to take Meiser Sheni. So now you have Meiser Sheni of the Mai. It's also Meiser Sheni. But Meiser Sheni of the Mai is different than normal Meiser Sheni in many details, as we'll learn right now inside. The Mai, rule number one, if you are not, you got it, if you're not taking the Demai to Yerushalayim itself, but yes, you are redeeming it on money, you are the owner, you don't have to add the Chomesh. Next rule, ve'ein loy biur. Biur means, when it comes to all of the Trumas U'Maisers, there are two steps. There is the separating of it, and then there is actually giving it to the proper recipient, giving it to the Kohen, giving it to the Levi, or in the case, eating it in Yerushalayim. Once I separate the Trumas U'Maisers, whatever remains is bona fide kosher chulin. Even though I didn't give it to the Kohen yet, even though I didn't give it to the Levi yet, it's separated. But there is a time where I have to give it to the recipient, and if I don't give it, I have to remove it from my house. When do we have that time? Twice during the 7-year cycle. It's either, let's go with the Rambam, Erev Achron Shel Pesach, on the 4th year and on the 7th year, or it's Erev Pesach on the 4th year and on the 7th year. What's the logic of then? Because the Shemitah cycle is really divided into 2 mini cycles, like we just mentioned. The very fact that first, 2nd year Meiser Sheni, 3rd year Meiser Ani. So the 4th year it begins again. Right. You understand? And the same thing is Shemitah. So the 7-year cycle has 2 mini cycles. After the mini cycle ended, when after? Not the day after. The day after will be Echad B'Tishrei, Pesach time. That's where the Torah gives a limit. You have to give it to the recipient, and if not, you have to remove it from your house. That's called the Zman Habir Meisers. Meiser Sheni, if you didn't yet take it to Yerushalayim, if you didn't take the money in Yerushalayim, you have to get rid of it. You can't keep that thing forever. Says our Mishnah that the Mai doesn't have this beer. That means you don't have to remove it from your house. You can accumulate that product forever. Another rule. That's also connected to the last Pedic of Masechtas Chagiga, that even though Meiser Sheni is not holy like Truma Gedoyla, but there is a certain amount of Kedusha in it, which obviously is why you have to eat it in Yerushalayim. And that Kedusha also causes a rule that if someone is, God forbid, in a state of aninus, which means one lost any one of one's halachic 7 relatives, on the day of their death, midoiraisa, midrabanan, prior to the burial, even if it's the day after the death, that person is not allowed to eat, not even Meiser Sheni. Meiser Sheni Shel Demai is allowed to be eaten by an oim. Another rule. The other rule is that what happens if Meiser Sheni, the produce itself was taken to Yerushalayim, the owner did not redeem it. You took it to Yerushalayim. Question is, am I allowed to take it outside Yerushalayim and to redeem it outside? So
does that mean that you already paid for it?
No. The original. I brought the produce to Yerushalayim, even though it sounds, when you read the Chumash, you would say, once it's in there, you're not allowed to take it out. Because the Torah only allowed you to redeem it because it's too hard. You already brought it in there. You should know that Midoiraisa, even if you brought the thing itself to Yerushalayim, If you took it out, you are allowed to take it out, and once you're outside Yerushalayim, you can redeem it on money. The best practical example: a person wants to eat it. God forbid, a person is stingy, so they're not going to share. They want to eat it, and they had leftovers. I took all of my wheat to Yerushalayim. I make bread every day from my wheat, and I was there for 2 weeks. And the Airbnb over there in the Yamin Moshe was too expensive at that point. I have to go back. So I'm saying to myself, why should I? He gives it for free. That's his problem. But theoretically, if one would pay, so what do you do? A guy says, I'm going to take my wheat back. Midoraisa, I can take the fruit out and I can redeem it out. Midrabanan, once you brought it in Yerushalayim, you're not allowed to take it out. That midrabanan is only on Vadai Ma'aser Sheni. But on Demai, that's the word. Even though the Nichnas Yerushalayim, lechatchila, if you want, you can take it out, and not just take it out. The chiddush is you can take it out. Of course, if you take it out, you can bring it back in. You can take it out and now it's outside Yerushalayim. I'm going to redeem it on money, and you're not going to add a chaymish. Another din.
So you brought produce to Yerushalayim using your example. A person ate it. Now he took it out. Does he owe Ma'aser Sheni on what's left or on the whole amount?
No, only on what's left. What he ate, What he ate, yeah. Now, next thing is, Uma'abdin esmiyutoi badrachim. So let's learn what that means, that you can allow some to get lost on the roads. There are two understandings of it. Let's go with the Pnei Moshe. Today we'll learn one befleidish. The Pnei Moshe is the last medium-sized line. The last medium size, and it goes into the largest lines. Means if there are some produce that fell on the road, but it fell on the road in a location that for you to stop and to get it, there was some danger element involved. You have a couple of machablim. Even if what's there is very little, the for you to pick it up, you can just stop your car, run out, chop it, and take it in there. It doesn't weigh. You are allowed, in other words, what he's implying is that if I know that produce on the road is Ma'aser Sheni, I would know that. Even though it's not mine, someone else lost it, I'm not allowed to leave it there. There's holiness in it. But if there is, all right, then it depends. If it's Vadai David, then you have to make the balance. I know it's dangerous, but it's quick and easy. By Demai, even if it's quick and easy, since there is some danger, you can leave it there. That's one understanding. Then the Pnei Moshe brings from the Rambam that the Rambam Perish she'im b'shah shemoilech Ma'aser Sheni l'Yerushalayim. Not if you find someone else has lost Ma'aser Sheni. No, if you lost it when you're schlepping, when you're going to Yerushalayim, right? The nevet mimenu ma'at b'derech. One of your kids took a banana and threw it out of the window. In other words, you saw that your Ma'aser Sheni was lost, and no sakana. It's normally the din is you're chayiv to get it. Here, if it's something little, however you measure little, muat, then eino choishish loy. And in contrast, as the Pnei Moshe, avol bevadei tzorach she'aleu kuloi, oidam evil Yerushalayim, v'lo yei nefsed menu klum midrachim. He writes Gavaldik thing. What happens if it's some danger? And the guy says, I don't want to stop my car. You're fine. But you know what you have to do? Let's say a banana is worth $1. You lost a banana of Ma'aser Sheni. Take $1 really $1.25, and say, I'm not picking it up, but I'm exchanging it on this. That's by Vadai. And by Demai, but one thing is by Demai, it's only miyutoi. I don't know how to measure the Mishnah doesn't say. Maybe we'll have in the Gemara. Next. The nois neila amoaretz v'yoichel kenegei. Another rule, guys. The Chachamim forbade giving Ma'aser Sheni Vadai to a Am Ha'aretz. Why is that? Because the Am Ha'aretz might eat it betumah. That is only said by Ma'aser Sheni Vadai, by Ma'aser Sheni of the Ma'aser Nois neila Am Ha'aretz. Aber it's not azoy the way it sounds like. It's not you can give it to him and that's it. But you have to eat kenegdoi. Again, let's read the Pnei Moshe. Right? It's 4 lines in the widest lines. V'oichel kenegdoi. The fee mash and asal ha'aretz, whatever amount you gave to the ha'aretz, loikach min chasav kenegdoi. You have to take its value. V'oichel betaras ma'aser Yerushalayim. In other words, you can argue, if I'm anyways eating its value, what's the chiddush? Chiddush is, you can't give it. He doesn't know how to do it. And we have another minute. Let's go. Let's see how far we can get. The next rule. Like we said in the introduction, when you're outside Yerushalmi, the Torah says, in other words, you have money. It has to be money, not something of value. It has to be money that's minted. You take the Ma'aser Sheni and you exchange it on $1, on the shekel chadash. What happens if you have $1 and for whatever reason you want to exchange it from this dollar on that dollar? You're not allowed to do that. Because the general rule of Ma'aser Sheni is that even though Torah allows for a chilul means it's going from one type to another type. Like peiros on money. And then in Yerushalayim, you take money and you buy peiros. But for you to take money for whatever reason and you want to exchange it on the same type of money, you're not allowed to do that. Now, what that implies is that, let's say I have silver coins of Ma'aser Sheni, and over the years that accumulated, this year is going to be a 4th year. I got to eat it this year. So I'm taking it. I don't want to schlep the big bag of silver coins. I can be mechalal the silver on gold because it's on different type. But kesev on kesev, for whatever reason, you may not. That's by vadai. But by the mai, umechalal oisoi kesev al kesev, you are allowed to make that transference. Or nechoshes on nechoshes, which is gavaldi. I want to add another nuance. That if you have silver coinages from different governments, then even vadai is allowed to be exchanged because it's not considered the same. We're speaking about the same government coin, the same minted coin, the same king, the way it used to work then, and the same silver. Vadai you cannot, and the mai you could. Let's go weiter. Now comes a bigger hitch. We learned in Perek Hazov, if you remember, Baba Metzia. People just learned this now not that long ago. That you have, whenever you make a transaction, so there is a king, let's go with the king in Kesef. I know there's a machlekes, Rabbi Yechon and Shlakish. Rabbi Yechon says about Torah, Kesef is koine. Okay, let's go with that. And by Goyim, even now, Kesef is koine. What is Kesef? When you barter two items, Kesef, which one is Kesef and which one is the payment? So in other words, if you have to make the kinyan by doing meshicha on the item, then you have to know which one is the item. So when it comes to different types of currencies, the rule we learned in Azov is that the ikir money is kesef, silver coinages. Now, when you have a banana and a copper coin, the copper coin is the money and the banana is the payment. But if you have silver coins and copper coins, we say that the silver is money and the copper is produce. And therefore, one thing is clear, that you cannot exchange money of Ma'aser Sheni on peiros chutz Yerushalayim. Can't do that. So on Ma'aser Sheni, vadai, if you have silver coins, we said that you could exchange it on golden coins, but can you exchange it on nechoshes coins? No. The answer is no. Why not? Because it's called peiros, but nevertheless, it's not peiros. It's a coin. So there's another nuance that if there is a reason, there's a pressing need. If there's a pressing need, then you could, because at the end of the day, nechoshes is nechoshes. That's the marafulda. So he says that by demai you can lechatchila, even when there's no doichik, take the silver coins that were used for the pidyon of the produce. It's imbued with Ma'aser Sheni, and you can exchange it onto copper coins. Says the Marafulda Peidish, even when there's no doichak, there's no pressing need. Avol shel vadai, he just wants to own up. You cannot do it on produce. But midoichekin, shalom midoicheklai. And shalom midoicheklai is because, like we spoke out, because in other areas of halacha, we consider the copper. And similarly, by the way, unachoshes al peiros, even outside Yerushalayim, which means, we'll stop over here, that you can exchange. In other words, this whole concept. The fact that you can take Ma'aser Sheni that was exchanged on money, okay? And by the way, nechoshes doesn't mean only nechoshes; it means even silver. Ma'aser Sheni that can only be used for food in Yerushalayim, that's by vadai. But by demai, outside Yerushalayim, even outside Yerushalayim, you can buy produce with it. We'll stop over here and we'll continue the Mishnah.